Weed is kind of cool. That's what I knew about weed when I tried it the first time in a park like this. I also knew it was bad for my brain and that I was 8 years too young to the party. Yet, at 17, I already felt late. Back then, doing anything from weed to alcohol scared me, but I felt I'd tried at least once. Everyone else did. So at my first college party, the first party I was ever invited to, I did. Half the time, I felt like I was in a dream, and the other half, I was clutching onto my 3 seconds of lucidity before inevitably getting pulled back into the dream. When I sobered up enough that I wasn't uncontrollably crying or laughing, I was brutally honest and weirdly doting on people. I was acting without the filter and the fear of judgment instead of reacting how I hoped was appropriate when I was sober. People laughed with me and not at me. People liked me. For the first time in my life, I was invited to parties and people thought I was cool. They wanted to hang out with me. And every time, they offered me more weed. Growing up, I struggled with making friends and understanding my behavior. I was labeled weird and annoying early on, a title I hated but internalized. I specifically chose a college further from home with fewer high school classmates so that I'd get a fresh start. Quickly, I made more friends than I ever had combined, and one of them was weed. I was that annoying person asking for weed at the function because I didn't have my own supply. For a while, that access barrier kept me from getting addicted to weed. After I dropped out of college, I got my own supply of pot. Since I was hiding my pot use and because it was convenient, I exclusively bought wax pens that could get me high enough instantly and wouldn't smell. I had nothing to do, so I smoked. All day, every day. At first, I smoked once a day. I would listen to that album I'd been putting off, and I'd get super hearing and notice every last detail in the production, feel the music come to life, and taste the colors it had to give. I love that feeling. So I tried to see what else weed could make more fun. Video games, movies, TV, a rare night out. And then I used it to make chores more interesting. Cleaning, cooking. And then I was relying on weed so much that everything became a chore. Eating, entertaining myself, socializing. Every activity became a daunting task without having weed to pull me through. I couldn't play video games with a friend or watch a movie without getting high, or I'd fear getting bored. But boredom and lack of motivation became my everyday. What I was using weed to escape became my reality. In a matter of weeks, I watched myself become a statistic. People with anxiety, ADHD, autism, depression, people of color, queer and genderqueer people, they're all groups more at risk of developing substance abuse. And I hit almost every category. Around that time, I was diagnosed with ADHD, anxiety disorder, and autism on top of already being queer in both my gender and sexuality. I didn't start that young, like a lot of my peers, it felt like, and I had a supportive, stable family at home, things that would otherwise be big risk factors. Really, it was years of isolation and rejection that attracted me to weed, and my identity and mental disorders had a big role to play in that. But anything that gives you a quick fix, a fast painkiller, an instant hit of dopamine, it gets you addicted real easily. Canada legalized weed for recreational use right as I entered high school. That decision was informed by the many proven benefits of decriminalization, like reducing the burden on the criminal justice system and minimalizing the social exclusion of people who use drugs. When the federal government passed the bill, it allowed each province to set its own minimum age to buy cannabis. Most provinces went for 19 years, while 2 went for the federal recommendation of 18 years, mine included. But by the time I started using pot, Quebec upped the minimum age to 21, becoming the odd one out. Our Prime Minister justified his decision by claiming it would keep 18 to 20-year-olds away from the drug, which studies say did happen, but really, while some youth might have been deterred from consuming cannabis, most of us have to resort to getting our supplies from unregulated sellers that benefit from return customers. And with criminalization comes stigmatization, which makes young people like me afraid to share our experience. That's most likely why our numbers seem to have gone down when they really haven't, and I can guarantee you that. Pot dispensaries in Canada are state regulated and offer products with lower THC, the cannabinoid that makes you high, specifically to keep them less addictive, something the black market does not. And with a hookup from a friend, I gathered my own supply of highly addictive, unscented products that kept me very inebriated and off the radar. The thing with putting so much of a substance into your system is that it adapts to it. You get tolerance. Your body needs more to feel the same effects the more you take. For months, I was using higher and higher doses of the drug that would make someone sober end up in hospital. It took maybe a few weeks for me to realize I was addicted, then a couple more weeks to come off the denial. I thought I could stop anytime I want to, I just don't want to. But after a few months of regularly getting panic attacks and struggling to do anything, I did want to stop, but I couldn't. I was terrified of going without weed. I saw it as a loss. Anytime I wasn't high, all I could think of was weed. Anytime I was high, all I could think of was how soon I'd need another hit. I lived and breathed pot. I would wake up and get high like one would need coffee to get on with their day. That or I'd smoke because I'd wake up with a headache, one I get from smoking too much and not drinking enough water before falling asleep. I made a few strides to stop, the longest always lasting 2 weeks. And with the amount of weed in my system, I always felt some leftover high in those moments. After a year of addiction, I tried a different method. I bought a cheap notebook and wrote down everything I felt. Why I wanted to stop, why I couldn't. I was brutally honest with myself to get it all out somewhere other than just my head. But at the 2-week mark, like every other time before that, I relapsed. Cannabis messes with your hunger signals, which is why you want to eat a lot when you're high, also known as the munchies. With prolonged use, I lost my appetite. I couldn't feel hungry unless I smoked, which made it hard for me to feed myself. I'd want to smoke just so I could look at food and not feel nauseous. It also messes with your sleep. After such long and heavy use, when you go without, you get wild, unending dreams that completely mess with your sleep quality. So those 2 weeks I did always felt long, but were far from the 3 months I needed to get through withdrawal. And back then, really all I wanted to do was bring my tolerance all the way back down so I could have fun smoking again. A month after starting my journal, with a couple slip-ups under my belt, I tried a different approach. I couldn't keep tracking the days until it would be 2 weeks or 2 months, and I couldn't keep falling back on weed when the boredom got overwhelming. Because at that point, I was terrified of boredom without having that quote-unquote quick fix to rely on. Even though by then it wasn't anymore, I couldn't remember or imagine life sober, and I didn't want to, but I was scared of what addiction could do to me long term. So I focused on that fear instead. On September 1st, I stopped weed with the goal of making it to 2025 without smoking. By then it would have been 4 months, enough to be done with withdrawal. At first I thought I'd have this video out by New Year's, but when January 1st came around, things had changed. So I reached my goal. This time around, I gave my supply to my dad to do with it what he pleased, and I kept writing. Every time I had the urge to smoke, I would force myself to sit down and write, process, breathe. The very first day was the hardest, as always. I think I need it now. I can push the start date back to tomorrow, but I didn't. I kept myself occupied, but mostly I kept myself around company. I didn't have to bear the weight alone, and I didn't have to be bored by myself. Keeping myself busy and surrounded, but also accepting the boredom when it came, was my key to success. When I'd inevitably get bored, I would have no choice but to sit in the quiet and wait, or to force myself to start an activity to entertain myself. And when I'd get lonely, I'd force myself to be in the same space as my dad or my cats, even if I was just doing my own thing by them. It held me accountable. Every time I'd get the urge, I'd have to remind myself of every reason I had to stop and convince myself again every time that it was what I wanted. Even when I felt it wasn't, I told myself it was. Eventually, I believed it. I did want to stop, and I didn't want to smoke again. I started going out again, I got a job, my anxiety meds started working without weed to counteract its effects. Earlier this year, my health caught up to me, Some symptoms I've been ignoring started calling out to me, so I knew I needed a change. I got a gym membership with my friend and slowly became more confident in myself and knowledgeable in my workouts. Funnily enough, working out releases similar cannabinoids to the ones in weed. They interact with the same receptors, but without giving you the high. I get that good feeling, that absence of bad, and it helps me focus. In a way, exercise has become the self-medication I wanted weed to be. I started doing all my hobbies again. Writing, drawing, painting, crochet. Everything became easier, and the motivation I lacked, the drive I yearned for, came back. Surprisingly so. But now that it's been a year, it's no surprise to me anymore. When I stopped, I couldn't imagine life sober. Now, I can't imagine life high. I can see my future and be excited for it. Staying sober isn't a challenge anymore. It's more a fun fact I get to flex. Because it's such a great achievement to my 2024 self. Weed stopped being my personality. I gained confidence and allowed myself to take up the space I've always deserved. Sometimes I still find myself thinking of smoking, but it's not an urge anymore. It's a rare passing thought. I go weeks without thinking of weed. I won't say I have no issues anymore. I still have trouble sleeping and have weird dreams, but things are looking up and I'm looking forward to tomorrow every single day. I still have days when I'm stuck in the boredom and all I can do is wait, sit in it, try to distract myself. But I know it's okay and that I can't feel motivated every single day. Now I trust myself because I know I don't need a high to feel better. I just let time be and do its thing. And the next day or the day after that, I'm all better. Because it's okay to get bored and it's okay to get stuck. There's always tomorrow. When I got to 2025 sober, I decided to get to the 1 year mark. And that year is done today. So what did I learn? I love myself. I don't need weed to be interesting, to be loved, or for people to want to hang out with me. Don't get me wrong, I still like weed. It's a drug I feel infinitely more positive about than, say, alcohol or hard drugs. In fact, it's the drug I knew I didn't want permanently out of my life when I stopped. I just wanted to get back to life, and a time when weed was just a fun drug I could take from time to time with friends. What it started as, what it should be. I'm a bit scared to try it again, to be honest, since now I know how bad it can get. But I take solace in also knowing how good it can be in extreme moderation, when it's not at the center of my life's orbit. And I know when I do try it again, I'll be with people I trust. And I trust myself to keep me in check.